Welcome back to Fan Talk. I'm David.
And I'm Simon.
And we're going to be going over
some news for the week, basically.
Weekly news.
Yeah. Let's just start off with the kind of what happened last weekend at the box office, the September 13th through 15th. It's Chapter 2 kept the top spot with a only 50% drop. Not too bad. A little bit more of a drop than the first movie, but it did pretty well still. It made $39 million.
It did pretty well.
It did well, yes. It did well, too.
It did well, too, yeah.
The international on that one now is up to $327 million off of a $70 million budget. It's solid. That means that the It franchise is now over $1 billion off 2 movies.
Yeah.
Which for Stephen King is by far and away the most successful adaptation.
Successful ever, yeah. And just real quick on that movie, like we talked about it, something we didn't talk about, what I thought about after a while, is if you notice at the very end of that movie, there's some statements the guys are making, and one of them he says is "stand," right? Mm-hmm. And it kept ringing to me as like, man, when I read The Stand, that was a big line in the book that wasn't in it. It was about it's important not to whether you win or lose, but to just stand against evil. I don't know, but I'm digging. I think that's a plug. I think
Easter egg at best.
I think it's an Easter egg at best, but I do believe that it's very distinctly possible that this director has gotten the rights to do a Stand movie, which we have never seen except for the TV movie. It's easily Stephen King's, if not best-selling book, second best-selling. It's right in there, his top book, so they're like fan favorites. So it would make sense that to maybe do a movie for The Stand, and I think that this may be a little insight, a little just plug of like, hey, guess what? This is what's coming down the pipe. So I don't know for a fact. That's just one of those little things I listen to. I pay attention. I'm like, I would not be surprised if we see a Stand.
The money that we've seen from this, I do not put it past them to see what else they can mine.
Yeah.
Just as a side note, besides these 2 versions of It, what's your favorite Stephen King adaptation?
My favorite adaptation or book?
Adaptation, movie.
Okay.
Either TV or theatrical.
Gosh, that's kind of tough.
I'll throw a curveball while you're thinking.
Okay.
Does Shawshank count? Based on Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank Redemption, it is. Yeah, that would. Well, and then there's the Green Mile, right?
That's another good one.
It's another good one. I mean, those are both great adaptations, and as far as good movies, those would be hands down the best.
Yeah.
If we're looking more at the horror side of it, I would probably, like, as far as scary goes, I would probably go with Pet Sematary.
Yeah,
like
that's
as
true.
a kid, that was really creepy to me, and just the fact that it was a creepy story, a very good story.
Yeah, my kids saw the title of that at the store, like saw the DVD sitting there, like, oh, pets. I'm like, no,
yeah. There's a lot of good Stephen King stuff. I'm actually really looking forward to Red Rum coming out, which is the sequel to The Shining.
And that's the one that they're actually taking elements from both the book and the movie, considering those are both very different.
Yes.
But also equally popular in their own ways.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to that. But I love Stephen King. I love the way he writes.
I loved his little cameo.
Yeah. Some people look at his stuff as true horror. Some look at more of it as pulp. But regardless, it's if you like reading, his books are just fantastic. He has a great way of building characters, almost to a fault. Sometimes you have so much detail that your imagination isn't allowed to run as free because he really he paints a picture, which can make things very terrifying too. So I really like his books. A lot of the movies, though fun, haven't been as well done. A lot of TV, straight to TV or DVD movie releases where they weren't as fantastic. But now, kind of like with comic book movies, we're starting to see a lot more of those kinds of films coming out and just really nailing it.
Throwing a good budget at it and good directors and everything else.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm excited to see more of his stuff coming out.
Okay. And number 2, Hustlers opened up to number 2 at $33 million. It was actually pretty closely right behind it too, and overperformed expectations. And on a $20 million budget, it's already solid. It's kind of one of those breakout successes already. We'll see how long it legs out, but it's hitting hard in all the demographics.
Yeah.
Dropping number 3, Angels Fallen, fallen to number 3. And now we're talking about movies that only made like $4 million last weekend. So, those first 2 movies had all the limelight, and then it's going from there. Good Boys, and then Lion King finishes out the top 5. Kind of like before, as the summer's died off, so we're just going to cover the top 5 with the one exception, which I'll cover in a second. And then we'll keep it going when it makes sense to expand it back to, what's more than top 5.
There's more films out to talk about that really, jiving and moving, then we'll talk about them. But right now, that's really all that's newsworthy.
The other new release for last week was Goldfinch. Opened at number 8 with $2.6 million on a $45 million budget.
Yeah,
it is considered as one of the biggest flops for a number of screens released on in a long time.
Yeah,
it's definitely for the years. So it looks nowhere close to getting its money back. It came out of Toronto. This is tale of two movies here.
Yeah.
So it came out of Toronto Film Festival with solid reviews, strong word of mouth, and just peaked at the perfect time.
Yeah.
Goldfinch came out of this festival with lousy critic reviews and shows, and people wanting to go see it.
Yeah.
So their play for Oscar bait did not play out.
Yeah.
So that will probably die a very quick death, and so much for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Looking ahead, we have three very different movies coming out this weekend.
That is the truth.
We have Ad Astra, Brad Pitt's
sci-fi film.
It's gotten an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. The reviews are a little mixed, but I've also seen some good ones in there. On an $80 million budget, it's going to have to hit pretty solid. But I'm going to cover all three of these movies. All three of them are expected to run in about the 15 to 25 million opening window.
Yeah.
And so with that, along with Hustlers and It 2, we're going to have like 5 movies next weekend, after this weekend, that are going to be really no telling which order these are all going to fall in.
They're all vying for the same spots.
Yeah,
so
and they all have very different demographics.
Yeah.
I mean, we got horror, got crime drama, sci-fi, historical drama, and pure action.
Pure action.
So they're all very different movies. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that's going to shake out. But back to Ad Astra for a second. It seems like in the last few years, these like high concept sci-fis are extremely hit or miss. Either you have a solid like The Martian or Interstellar, or you have ones like Valerian. I mean, you just don't.
But see, I think
First Man.
It's kind of predictable in a way, though. I mean, when I looked at Valerian coming out, and it had a decent push, I was like, this is not gonna hit. And The Martian would be one that did a little bit better than what I was expecting. Interstellar, I mean, from everything that was coming out about it, I expected it to be as successful as it was. So, I mean, I think there's a little bit of predictability to it. Like, Valerian was a lot of eye candy.
Another misstep was First Man last year, the Neil Armstrong story. That had solid reviews, and it just didn't click with the audience.
Yeah, and again, that was a great film. I've watched it a couple of times, actually. It's a very, very good film. But a lot of things with this, with all movies, is timing. Timing is so important when it comes to a movie coming out. What it's going up against, what the feel of the people are at that time, what people are wanting to watch.
Of course, Brad Pitt's coming off a high with Once Upon a Time. That could help. I'm really got my fingers crossed for this one, but at the same time, I'm like,
I just don't know. It's an awfully high budget, and for the budget that it's had, I haven't seen as big a push on this film. Like, for instance, Interstellar is everywhere.
This was a Fox film that Disney's not putting out.
Yeah,
we've seen them also not pushing out their films. Fox Films Hardcore.
Yeah, and that though in the end it's kind of weird because it's still about money in the end. You want to make your money, and it's weird to me that they didn't. But that's the thing, is this movie could end up being a very good movie that just didn't get enough word of mouth out there and not enough people go and watch it. Because I can say this, I've been pushing this film.
Yeah, we're not knocking on it yet. We actually hope it does well.
To friends and family, I've been like, this looks like a really interesting film. I'm going out and watching it opening night. Like, I'm going tomorrow to watch it. Because I'm highly hopeful. I'm interested. It's one of those films that, because I know so little about it, it looks like, and the kind of money put into it and the actors that are in it, I feel like this could be a real Interstellar kind of film. Then again, I might go in and just
might
be
like, Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, so just don't know. We'll
could be
see.
This. Could be this generation Starship Troopers, for all we know.
So I mean,
for good or for worse.
I'll be back, here in a couple of days, and I'll give a review on it and let you guys know if this is definitely something you should go and watch. But I have high hopes. Yeah. But again,
high hopes. Number 2, Downton Abbey, the historical drama. That's also predicted to do in the 15 to 25 million range. It has a solid built-in audience.
Yeah, that has a built-in audience.
People are going to go see it.
Yeah, I went and watched some episodes after we did our last video. Very good.
It's well made, isn't it?
Yeah, it's well made. It's actually, for the kind of film it is, it's very entertaining. It keeps you in, and it moves a lot quicker than you'd expect. Yeah, and so
it's like a West Wing back in the day.
Yeah, and it's like it has a lot of fun actually, and it's definitely something you can sit down with the family and enjoy. And so I kind of quit after 3 episodes. I was like,
did you start from the very beginning?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I started, and I was like, you know what? I want to go watch the movie. And then I'll go back and watch the rest, because
you're gonna notice a main character missing. Then I'll tell you why later.
But Yeah, so I mean, but again, this is totally different than the sci-fi. Totally different than the next movie we're going to talk about, which is Rambo.
Rambo, number 5.
Last Blood.
For now. Next one will be Last Blood, we swear.
Yeah.
That's also projected to in the same range. The Rotten Tomatoes on it is 56%, which for a Rambo movie is not bad.
No. And honestly, from like now that we did our last little thing,
a bit of a feel of the plot.
What kind of the plot is, I have a lot more high hopes for this film. Although, like, I was reading a bunch on it last night in preparation to talk a little bit about it today. There's a lot of negativity about it just based on his age, and there's a lot of jokes about like, now geriatric Rambo, and don't get me wrong, Sylvester Stallone it's aged incredibly well, as along with a lot of those action stars from that era.
Yeah.
These guys still look great for their age, but
it helps when you don't have to do a 9 to 5 and you can have a personal trainer.
Yes, absolutely, dietitian and holist and everything else. Don't get me wrong, but I am saying the fact that for 70 people in their late 60s, early 70s, these guys are in shape.
Yeah.
So I kind of disagree with a lot of that. Oh, they're just so old. They're so old.
It's a slight suspension of disbelief as well, because even somebody in their prime is likely not to be able to pull off the same action things in real life.
Yeah, I get it. But it's also one of those things that these guys are in phenomenal shape. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Plus, I don't know if they're going to say how old he actually is in the film, but you could realistically, there's a lot of actors who are in their 30s who play high school kids.
Yeah.
So
also, this could take place 10, 15 years ago when he was younger.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
the only thing really tying him to an actual age is the fact that he served in Vietnam.
Yeah, exactly. So, and
I did some looking as well, and, hit mute for a second on spoilers if you don't want to hear anything. It shows like that girl being kidnapped in Mexico in the trailer.
Yeah.
And I was like, they never covered anything about him having a family or anything before, other than the end of the 4th movie, he leaves to go back home to visit his dad finally.
Yeah.
This is a niece. So
Okay.
that's why you don't have to worry about backstory or tying it into previous canon.
Gotcha.
So anyway, I thought that was really bugging me watching. I'm like, did he have a family? I was like, no. Like, how does that fit in? Because in the 2008 one, he didn't have any family. He was living in Burma or Thailand at the time. So anyway, this is a niece. So and spoilers. Oh, back to
well, and also it didn't touch if they killed her or if they just kidnapped her. We don't really know. But that's why we'll go watch the movie. I have enjoyed, the first Rambo. Obviously, I really liked. The other two were just eye candy, fun stuff when I was younger. I haven't really gone back and rewatched the newer one. I only watched the one time, and it was okay. I wasn't overly impressed, so I wasn't going into this one like this is a movie I asked for. I'm really excited about it. Now, though, I'm a little intrigued. I'm looking forward to seeing Sylvester Stallone. He's real hit and miss with a lot of the stuff he's done, but whenever he hits something good, it's a fun movie to watch.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking this will be a fun movie. If you like these kind of movies, I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're probably going to like it. But again, I'm going to have a busy weekend. Friday, I'm going to watch Ad Astra. Saturday, I'm going to go watch Rambo. I know you're going to be watching...
we covered... Well... I want to watch all 3 of them. I was trying to figure out the timing on doing it, though.
But so realistically, folks, by next week we should be able to put a video out and tell you pretty much about all these because we're going to hit all these movies over the weekend. Because
all 3 of these are in our wheelhouse as far as interest on different levels.
Yeah. So
let's go into some news from the last few days. First of all, I thought this was hilarious. For about 5 seconds yesterday, the entire internet was in complete agreement on one thing. There was an announcement of a possible Princess Bride reboot.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, no.
No, yeah.
I like that Carrie Elway's tweet. He's like, there's a shortage of perfect movies in this world. We shame to ruin this one.
Right?
And also, the memes of inconceivable were everywhere.
Yeah, inconceivable. And on top of that, it's like, okay, as an older guy, right? I'm not going to give away my total age here, but I'm older. I've seen all these movies growing up, and I loved them. And sometimes somebody's like, we're going to do a remake, and your first instinct is no. And then sometimes they come out, and it's really good, and you're like, okay. But then sometimes they just totally destroy a piece of your childhood. And it's...
Well, the original one's still there.
Yeah, it is, but it's just
you can watch Point Break without having to watch the new Point Break.
Exactly. But it's like, why? Why did you do that? And some things are just so good, and like, we've covered this, but Back to the Future. Don't touch it.
You can't improve upon it.
Don't mess with it. Princess Bride.
It's another one that you can't do. You can't improve
all
upon
you're
it.
going to do is get killed, and then the only thing we can do is rummage through your pocket for loose change.
Yeah. Or they can do to make make Fezzik the giant CG.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just, to me, it's one of these classic Hollywood buys on something that reaches to a certain crowd, and they think, hey, we're going to redo this, we're going to do it great, people are going to love it. No. Hollywood. What people like is new content. We want to see new stories come out. I'm tired of all these reboots.
Yeah, what they're saying is that new content at movies, at the cinema, the box office doesn't work. IP does. Most of the new content and new storylines are going to TV. Yeah, and I think that's probably where it needs to go for now. And then new things based upon that then should get adapted to bigger screens.
Yeah,
it's like Downton, for example.
Well, and we could talk about The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
The Walking Dead, they killed off Rick. We haven't done a lot of TV discussions. We're going to start getting into more of that. But Walking Dead, we could spend a whole episode on. But they finally got rid of Rick from the series, which makes sense. He's been doing it for 9 years. I'm sure that Lincoln's looking forward to moving on to bigger and better things, and it sounds like he is. But it's going to be more Walking Dead. They've signed on for 1 definite, but it's looking like 2 Rick inspired Walking Dead films. So after 9 years and the series is starting to dwindle, less fans, it's kind of starting to jump the shark a bit, they're like, well, it's time to move to the big screen. And so they're going to be taking, the big characters, the lead character who they haven't really killed off, and give him a storyline on the big screen. And that's kind of what you're talking about, is these really new content ends up going to streaming networks.
Because you can develop the characters and the storylines in depth on TV with the time you have available.
Yeah.
And then you can put a movie on with an already established character without having to take up half a movie of character development.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, one more thing I was going to say, I'm not completely against remakes and reboots. Sometimes they're good. The Incredible Hulk versus the Hulk.
Yeah.
The newer Tomb Raider I thought was better.
Much better. And I agree with you. I'm not saying anything should be remade. Like, even the Stephen King films. A lot of those were straight to TV with next to no budget. But they were great stories. But that's what the people that wanted to make the movie could afford at the time. And now, with their market for it, you can finally go and make it really well. But then there's stuff that I just feel is just fluff. I mean, they redid Watership Down. It's a new animated cartoon, and I've started watching some of it. It's good. It is good. But I didn't really need it, And it's
something like Neverending Story. I think that could use a good update, especially with modern special effects.
Man, I don't know.
I'd be more open to that one.
I'd be okay with that, I guess.
Because I love the story, I love the story, but the actual, I don't want to put this the right way. The actual characters and actors in the movie, while good and did that movie well, weren't just 100% iconic. Like, you cannot recast anybody from Princess Bride and expect them to do better than the originals. I could actually see a new cast doing a certain homage and doing a new take on the Neverending Story well.
Well, see, the way I disagree with you is the same thing with the reason why everybody's so happy that Dark Crystal got redone the way it did. Is that movie was 90% Muppets. The only actors you had in that movie was the princess and the boy.
Yeah, and also
the bookkeeper.
With the exception of a few of the Skeksis, the entire, especially the Gelfling cast, was all brand new.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like it's not like they redid the Dark Crystal. They just added to it.
But with this redoing it, I mean, the only live acting actors would be those 3 people. Then the 3 bullies. I mean, but there's very few scenes with an actor, and he did an excellent job, especially for a young man at that time. Yeah. I'm not saying you couldn't get an actor that does it better, but I am saying that they would redo all those Muppets and all that work, and it would more than likely would all be CGI. And I just don't know. Once again, I'm kind of one of those people that's one of those films you don't need to mess with. If anything, redo a sequel for it. Redo another tale of the Neverending Story.
The Neverending Story 2 was based on. It was also based on the second half of the book, though.
Yes.
They just got steadily worse and worse. And the third one, if I remember correctly, was an all brand new original story based upon. We've gone way off the topic on here, which we have a tendency to do. Should hear us when we're talking without a camera. Next on the list, NBC's announced that they're joining the streaming wars with the Peacock.
Peacock. Peacock channel.
I get the reason for the name. I just wonder why they went with that. There'll be obviously a lot of NBC content on there, and I haven't looked at the thing in the price yet. I don't know if you had a chance to.
Yeah, and actually, we do a video later this week and go over a lot of the streaming networks. their prices. I can't go over everything, which I'll touch in that video because there's just so much. But I'll hit the big boys and lay some prices out and content.
Okay. Next up, the Jurassic World 8-minute short came out last weekend. And actually had some pretty good reviews to it. And I think we're going to cover that in another video here pretty soon. But I just wanted to mention that in case you guys hadn't had a chance to see it yet. Also an announcement, a second Game of Thrones prequel. Now, there's a prequel that's been announced for development that takes place thousands of years before Game of Thrones. This is a prequel that takes place about 200 or so years before and will concentrate on the Targaryen kings that ruled.
Okay.
So, I think, with a couple hundred years difference, I don't think there's any long-lived characters enough that you're going to see any crossover, but they can touch on themes and things that will tie in a little bit too.
Well, let's just be honest. Game of Thrones was such a huge success that they'd be foolish not to try and continue something. So I think
though after that, a little bit of controversy at the ending. I think if they let it sit for a year or two and kind of let people kind of recharge their Game of Thrones batteries and then do it. Of course, it's going to take a few years to even get these out to screen anyway. But
very true. And the thing is I feel like anything that does well in Hollywood, they just do it to death. And I hate even saying this, even with the Marvel superhero universe. It went from 1 movie a year, 2 movies a year, 3 movies a year. Now it's starting to slow back down as they're going to start gearing up something else. But that was a big problem with a lot of the streaming networks, mainly Netflix, when they came out with Daredevil, Iron Fist, Luke Cage.
I couldn't keep up for a while.
You couldn't keep up, and then a lot of people are starting to get oh man, I like superhero movies, but I want to see something else too. They flood the market with it, and it's a bad habit. And I understand they have a formula of how to make money, and I'm not saying it's 100% wrong. Obviously, they're making money, but if you spread things out a little bit, you keep people hungry for those kinds of content. And so I feel the same way. Game of Thrones, I don't think it has anything to end with the ending. I think the ending ended the best way it could have, personally. But I feel like, a little break and not just flood the market with all that fantasy. Try some new shows.
Get the demand back up.
Try out some different things. That's why I'm kind of excited at Showtime. They're not trying to do something fantasy or crazy. They went with sci-fi, and they went with a big storyline. They're like, hey, we're going to make a Halo series. That's awesome, and that's a risk, but I think it's a brave move, and I think it's going to pay off.
That reminds me, it's not on my list, but just reminded me, I did read about this. They're talking about developing another Battlestar. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, where else can they go with that story? I like the series enough that I want to hear more, but at the same time, they've already done other ships. They've already finished a show. What else can they? I'm just curious to see what else they can do that doesn't feel redundant,
or isn't just a complete reboot.
Yeah,
and
which I doesn't think it needs yet.
Yeah, and at that point, it's just once again just trying to squeeze those dollars. And not saying that you can't get a really good storyline, something that you enjoy, but I'm saying that overall, it's something that irritates me. Try something different.
Yeah, because the first one, the reimagining show, from the early 2000s onward. That took a sci-fi IP that was literally in the dumpster. The original one has its fans, but it's rough to watch. Yeah, and it has this movie. The show now has a ton of goodwill for what it did to the series. Yeah, and I just hate to see them do something that
a ton of goodwill for what it did for the series and for sci-fi in general. Mm-hmm. They once again proved that a sci-fi TV series could have a strong budget and do well.
And also have that kind of gritty street level feel to it, as opposed to, the Star Trek is obviously a lot more high-minded, and also before the earlier ones, especially the Next Generation era ones, a lot more of a clean, crisp feel to them.
Well, and also very optimistic future, where Battlestar is a very gritty, down-to-earth, pessimistic future. Yeah. Literally, mankind is fighting for survival.
Yeah, one jump at a time.
Yeah, so.
All right, a couple more things here. MoviePass has died what apparently is a final death. I never saw how this could possibly make any money. You pay, $15 or whatever it is, because they changed it several times a month, for unlimited movie access to the theaters. I was like, but you pay the money to the movie pass, and the movie pass has to then pay the theaters the full admission price each time you go see a movie.
Yeah.
It is destined to fail. I mean, because unless somebody only saw one movie a month on average for their entire subscriber base, they were going to lose money.
Yes.
Then there's going to be people like me that would use it. I would go like every day if I could.
Yeah. I would definitely use it 3 times a week. I could weasel my way into a theater if I didn't have to worry about pay or anything like that. Plus, you start to feel like you have to watch a movie. Like, I'd be like, do I really want to watch Goldfinch in the theater? Not really. I could wait. But
it's free at this point.
But it's free. And I haven't watched anything else this week. I need to spend that money. You know, it's
it'd feel like it was wasted if you missed a movie.
Yeah, exactly. If you miss something, you feel like you just wasted money. That's just the mentality of, I don't think just me, but most people. Yeah. So, yeah.
They went through multiple recapitalizations, buyouts, restricting different movies and times and everything. And they finally shut their doors last week. And it's become just a joke at this point, that they might keep going. Of course, it's also one of those things that it's been dead before, and somebody's like bought it out and revived it, saying, "Oh yeah, we can make a business plan out of this." I'm like, how?
How?
Anyway, hopefully this is the last death for this. Stick a fork in it. And now here's another one, a reboot idea I came across that I think is the movie. Before I jump in and say what movie it is, the original movie is one of a kind. It's not great by any stretch of any kind of definition, but it's a fun movie. And it was one of those lightning in a bottle movies that only the actors involved could pull off the movie. And any kind of reboot, I think, is destined for failure. Face Off.
I haven't seen that one. I've seen them talking about a reboot of Spaceballs, and that's where you were going to go with.
You've seen Face Off, though, right?
Yes.
Nicolas Cage.
Yes, Nicolas Cage and
Travolta. It's like only those two actors could have pulled off that movie. I want to take his face
off. No, and don't get me wrong, that came out in a golden age of films for me, where films like that and like Con Air would be successful in the theater. People went and watched those and had a lot of fun. And I remember
those were just lightning in the bottles for that. I was like, that's both of their heydays.
I remember thinking that Con Air was great, and I saw this bashing on it, and I was like, was it that bad? I don't remember being that bad. I went to rewatch it. This is about 2 weeks ago, actually. I mean, 5 minutes into it, I'm like, oh my God, this is bad. This is so bad.
But it's fun,
but it's fun. I mean, it's an entertaining movie. I had a good time, and I got lots of chuckles, and there's just some great stuff.
It's almost camp at some levels.
Yeah, but then you look back at how bad and campy it was, but then you look at the actors that were in it. Nicolas Cage at that time could do no wrong. Way before he had all his problems. You had John Malkovich, who's fantastic actor.
Dave Chappelle, Steve Buscemi,
fantastic actor. I mean, those two guys alone. I mean, you look at their resume and things they've done, and then they were in Con Air.
Also had John Cusack.
Yeah, John Cusack, which is a great actor. Yeah.
And they're all just having the time of their lives making it.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a lot of fun to do. I wonder how often they had to do retakes just from him trying to keep up that ridiculous accent.
But yeah, movies like that, that and then Face Off. As I said, those were very just peculiar movies to that time period of how they're making movies in the 90s.
Yeah,
and if you remade those now, I just don't see how you could just pull that off.
Or how it would be successful.
And not talking about the face.
You'd be riding the roller coaster of people who've seen the original and want to go and watch it. And again, back to the reboots. This movie has not been out that long. I mean, you think about it, when I think of something that should be rebooted, it should be rebooted from when I was literally a young child.
Ocean's 11 from the 60s to the 2000s one.
Yeah, it's these were older films that they rebooted and made. Some of the stuff they've rebooted were from, when my parents were kids, and so I can see some of that. And even some of the stuff from when I was younger, Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm like, well, I mean, that came out when I was a little kid.
Halloween.
Halloween. Some of these, I, again, don't necessarily agree with all of them, but I can see it. But now it's just the reboot movies from the 90s. That's not that long ago, folks.
I could see rebooting, Hulk early 2000s to Hulk late 2000s because it needed to have a reboot.
Well, and Marvel's...
And also the same with Spider-Man's.
Yeah, Marvel's doing something. And there's that's a different beast. It's you're always going to have James Bond movies. You're going to have Mission Impossible movies.
Which Bond's movies are almost a reboot every time they do it, to some degree.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's you're always going to have that. That's fine. I'm talking about taking a movie and just redoing the exact same movie. In a lot of cases, too, it's you can tell they're using the exact same script, everything. There's the only thing different is the actors. And I'm like, why? It'd be one thing too if the movie like originally wasn't done real well, like say a Stephen King film that's straight to TV. If we're talking a box office smash, right? And then we're gonna redo that. It's stupid.
Yeah,
just
and
leave it be.
Yeah, and I just go back to the fact that on the Face Off, those two actors could pull off that just weird chemistry they had with that movie. I mean, they're both at the height of their powers at that point.
Yeah.
That made me think of another movie that probably should never be touched that I haven't heard come up yet, but I guarantee you it will at some point. Mars Attacks. I mean, just see I go in the over-the-top campy. Let's redo that with some more special effects, and no, you can't redo it. That movie was one of a kind.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for my main news for this week. Stay tuned for other videos that we're releasing. Please remember to like and subscribe, and catch us next week for see how this 5-way split will come out of the box office.
Go Darnaby Rangers.